I thought we should first revisit this interview that you conducted with Foreign Minister Marise Payne yesterday, where she failed to endorse Scott Morrison's claims that Labor would appease the Chinese Communist Party if elected.
So will you be consistent with the Prime Minister then and say that Labor would be willing to appease China? If you're going to be consistent, why don't you reiterate what the Prime Minister says? It sounds like you're uncomfortable with that language.
I've made a number of points about this issue, including in media interviews that I did last week. Australia has been explicitly clear as a government, and we have been explicitly clear as a government, that we need to take steps that are in Australia's national interest consistently and clearly.
Watching that interview yesterday, it was like Kieran was waiting and waiting for Marise Payne to use the appease word, but it just didn't happen. Well, we've had further interventions today in the pages of The Australian by Dennis Richardson, the former ASIO boss and ambassador to Washington, who said, and I quote, although he praised the government on national security first, he said, "I don't believe it can be objectively stated that the opposition has sought to appease China. It has been consistently critical of human rights abuses in China." And he goes on to say, and it has stood with the government in defending our national interests when it has come to economic coercion by China. Scott Morrison copping some blowback on his push on China against Labor this week, and it was again the case in question time. But he started off with a Dixer where he repeated the claim.
Will the Prime Minister please outline to the House why it is important not to appease or be intimidated from calling out those countries that seek to coerce and bully others?
The Australian government remains deeply concerned about the ongoing threats of terrible violence against the people of Ukraine from Russia, Mr Speaker. There is one significant global power that pretends to international leadership that remains silent and even complicit when it comes to condemning the actions and threats of violence and intimidation of Russia, and that is the Chinese government, Mr Speaker. My government will never be the preferred partner of a foreign government, Mr Speaker, that has chosen to intimidate this country and has sought to threaten this country, Mr Speaker. They will not find a fellow traveller when it comes to threats and coercion against Australia in my government, Mr Speaker. I will never be their candidate.